Bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon I bid to all. With the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are gladly able to gather here today for our annual RECTOR'S Cup Debating Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I thank all of you for joining us today, and I welcome each and every one of you warmly. My name is Nur Fatiha, and I am your chairperson and timekeeper for today's debate session. I would also like to introduce our very esteemed judges to all of you. We have Brother Hashim with here today. So before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules. Speeches should be 7 minutes in duration. Speakers exceeding these may be penalized but should never be substantially less than this. After 6 minutes, the bell will be rung once, and after 7 minutes, the bell will be rung twice. POIs can only be offered after the expiration of 1 minute and may not be given after the expiration of 6 minutes. POI may only be given to opposing teams and should be generally not more than 50 seconds. If the speaker exceeds the 50-second duration, the chairperson may request the speaker to end their POI. The duration of reply speech will be 4 minutes. Speakers must use formal language. For reply speeches, both government and opposition sides are given 1 minute of preparation for reply speeches. With the rule explained, we will now continue with our second debate of the day. And the motion before the House this day is that this House, as a citizen of developing countries, would choose to remain in the country rather than move abroad as an expat. So, today the government team in this debate is Team D. We have Brother Wafi as the first speaker, Sister Alia Fatiha as the second speaker, and Brother Said Ibrahim Al-Habshi as the third speaker. The reply speech will be delivered by Brother Wafi. And the opposition team in this debate are Team F. We have Sister Wanur Atifa as the first speaker, Brother Muhammad Ilyas as the second speaker, and Brother Aris Shazwan as the third speaker. The reply speech will be delivered by Brother Ilyas. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our first speaker from the government side, which is Brother Wafi Izzuddin. Please welcome.
Hello, can you guys hear my voice clearly? Okay, I'll start with speech. 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, as this motion, this House, as a citizen of developing countries, would choose to remain in the country rather than move abroad as an expat. We, as a government, believe that as a citizen of our own country, we have the responsibility to contribute to our country and contributes to our own selves. And before that, let me clear or give some proper definition. So developing country is basically countries that is not a first world countries. So it's a country that sometimes it may be poor or even they are currently developing. For example, I can give you like Malaysia, Myanmar, or India or Pakistan. And expat, meaning that a person who lives outside of their native country. So regardless, they are still becoming the citizen of that countries, of that developing countries, but the difference is they live outside of their countries. So the status quo right now is many citizens of developing countries choose to move abroad as expatriates or expats in search of better opportunities or economic stability of their own and an improvement of quality of life. So the problem is the migration of those talented individuals from developing countries as expats. It can lead to a skill vacuum or a brain drain. So where valuable human of that countries is lost. And we believe that this can hinder the development and the progress of the countries. And more than that, additionally, like the outflow of skilled professional can exacerbate the existing of socio-economic of one's countries and the socio-economic disparities and the inequalities within the countries. And moving to my characterization, first, the citizen of developing countries is like person who have the best interest of themselves and their countries in mind. So, for example, I want the best of myself and my country also. And the second of all, there are also people in the country that is on its way up. And when I go overseas, and the second of and the third of it is when I go overseas, my country cannot get things that I have done. For example, my work, my contribution, and my taxes, and etc. So, and the last one will be like choosing to stay in my countries. We believe that it would benefiting my country by providing my skills on my own native countries. So, why is this motion exist? We believe that because like why is this problem is so dire, like why this position exists, because the thing is the expats, those people who living outside outside of their own native countries, they are leaving their family members behind, so they are incapable to bringing their family with them, and which can cause we believe an emotional distress. And this happened because they have to support the family that they have overseas and they have in their native countries. They have to take care of both, which it's hard for them to take care of both of them. And the second of all, is why we think that this motion exists is because it becoming to a question of morality and ethics, because it's hard and nearly impossible for them to take care of the family. So our stance is this: we, as a citizen of developing countries, categorically oppose sending the citizens of developing countries as expat, because we want to achieve we want to solve the ultimate problem, which is the root problem of that developing countries. And secondly, we want to achieve the best of ourselves in long term. So before I move, is there any POI? Okay, I'll be moving on. So my first argument would be like being an expat conflict with the interest of citizen in developing countries. So why do we think that the expat can have the conflict of interest of the citizen itself? Because they want the best for them and for their families, and in fact for the countries. So when they are going to overseas, when they are going to overseas, we leave our family behind, and it is hard for us to take care of our family that is in our native countries. We believe, and if the opposition is going to say that, oh, we can actually just sending them money so someone in our native countries can take care of them, we believe that sending money is not sufficient, because we have to have the balance of sending the money back home and using the money in the family that we have on that during the overseas. For example, if I live in Malaysia but I work in United Kingdom, I have my family in United Kingdom, and I also do have family back here. So since the living cost of the United Kingdom is high, and even though the currency exchange is like the pound sterling is very good, higher than the ringgit, but my living cost in UK is also high. So sending my family's money is not, I'm not saying unfair, but it's more to it's hard for me to having a proper financial management. Because why? Because I'm losing lots of money in these overseas countries, but I also hard for and I have to send my money back home. Sure.
Given that these developed countries are well known to have better regulated and higher minimum wages, why is it that you will be making less money when you are in those countries?
Yes, higher minimum wages is also true, but we have to accept the fact that not all of the countries of those developing countries are minimum wages and living costs are two different issues, but they are correlating with each other. So, and we and your question, I will also consider about the tax rate. For example, the minimum wages in German is nearly like 2,500 euro. However, the tax rate is nearly 40%. So I have to live there, and I have to also to have sending money back home. So it's hard for me to take care of myself and my family in the overseas, and also in the home. So why do we believe that? Why is this true? Because the citizen itself having the moral obligation as the citizen and as the family members of their own family, and second of all, why we think that this is true, because they can have the conflict of interest, because we definitely believe that they will be facing discrimination of those countries that we go to. In some cases, these people cannot cope with it, and they are going to back to their own countries, and they cannot progress of that. So this will the difficulty of this integration can lead to feelings of isolation, exclusion, and homesickness, ultimately impacting an individual's decision to return to their home countries. And for that, I am proudly propose.
Thank you to Brother Wafi. Now please welcome the first speaker of the opposition, Sister Atifa, to open the case for their side.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Side government's case completely and absolutely suffers from a number of key flaws. Number one, the poor characterization of what these developing countries actually look like. They simply define them as these poor or still developing. These countries which need a little bit of a heads up. However, on our side, we are able to provide you with a better characterization because these developing countries are more than just poor. These are countries which are suffering from poor GDPs in terms of economic growth and poor HDIs, human development indexes, meaning that their living standards are incredibly low. What does this look like? This looks like high living prices in comparison to the wages, limited job opportunities, less welfare policies, therefore less likelihood to have universal healthcare and class mobilization programs. In this way, these costs are actually a lot more higher than those relative to the wages and potential costs which will be earned and cost burden if you were to move towards the developing countries. Second, they define these experts as living outside a native country. They said that, but these people are going to go to places which are more expensive and it's going to be so far away. They completely and absolutely assume that, these people, if they live in Malaysia, they will immediately choose to go and live in a place like the United Kingdom. But in reality, if you were to choose to move abroad as an expat, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. If you were from Malaysia, you could easily move to Singapore, another developed country which is very, very nearby to us. You could go to Australia, a developed country which does not cost as much as it does to go to the UK. These are key assumptions, not just the key assumptions brought up by side government, which weakens their case. Yes, sir.
Don't those two countries that you just listed have higher living wages across the board?
But that
living prices across the board, sorry.
The reality is developed countries do have high living prices. This is something that we do address in our case and will be addressed later. However, the key thing that we're trying to point out to you is the fact that the things that you keep on stating exist in our world are things which also exist in your world. These high living costs and these people's inability to pay for things, even in our worst case scenario, still exist, something that we will explain later. Now let's talk about what it means to move as an expat. This means migrating and residing in another country. When we say residing, we say stay indefinitely, building commitments in the spaces, getting jobs, getting educations, integrating with that community. These things are essential because it points out how these people will make use of the public systems which are given to them when they receive visas. And also we would like to point out that they do have the choice to move back to their developing countries if they want to, but at the end of the day, we believe that it's still more beneficial for them to move abroad in the first place, regardless of whether or not they choose to come back. Ladies and gentlemen, looking at side government's case, they spoke about how these citizens want the best for themselves and for their countries. They said that these people, they have this obligation to come to be here, to be in their developing countries and to help these developing countries. However, we would like to point out why these countries are developing countries in the first place and why that is in fact not the fault of the citizens, something which will be elaborated in points. Another thing that they said is about how when asked about minimum wage, they completely changed the topic and talked about, this is true, but what about taxes? This is true, but what about living costs? In our case, we will present to you how in our world, we're actually able to cater to this in a more sustainable manner than that provided by side government here today. Now, there are two burdens which will be proven by side opposition here today. Number one, about how individuals are not morally obligated to stay and aid economic development. And number two, how moving abroad provides better economic opportunities for these individuals in the long term. Now, on the topic of how these individuals do not hold a moral obligation to aid economic development, why is this true? Let's talk about why these countries are developing in the first place, why these countries are suffering suffering from these high living prices, inflation, limited opportunities, so on and so forth. More often than not, it is not a person's fault. I, as an individual, am not at all responsible for the poor economy that Malaysia is experiencing right now. That is a result of things such as corruption. Even in the best case scenario, this high living costs and poor living conditions is caused by poor policies still enacted by the government. There is in no way or case that an individual is able to bring harm on a large enough scale to an extent where they deserve to be punished and forced to stay in a country which they are not benefiting from. Now, why is this bad? You're removing the ability for these people to choose a better life for themselves. Even side government has acknowledged from the very first few sentences that people move because they want a better life for themselves, because they want to look for better economic opportunities, because they want to go somewhere where they can live better, get a better job, get better pay. They acknowledge all of those things and somehow say that this is not possible on our side, despite the fact they have stated it is possible from the very first get-go. We believe that by removing this ability, you are placing an unfair burden onto the citizens to pay a price that they did not pay. We believe that they did not cause in the first place. We believe that this removal of obligation is incredibly harmful because it shifts away the blame from the people who are really wrong, the government, the people who do not take care of the people in the first place. In a lot of cases, if we look at real-world cases such as Malaysia, Myanmar, Bangladesh, every single one of these cases are suffering from poor economic development, and poor living conditions due to a major case by the government, due to cases of corruption, whether it was within the government or within the military, so on and so forth. Even in cases of developed countries which suffered a sudden blow, such as Greece, it was still within the fault of the government due to the fact that they failed to address these issues from the very first get-go in a democratic manner that they owe towards these people. These governments should be more responsible. But before I continue, yes, sir.
Are you okay with the fact that the countries who have provided you every needs for you, like education and infrastructure, but then you just leave because there is no need for you to take care of it?
Stop. In developing countries, these are not things which are necessarily provided. We have stated to you from the very first go that due to the fact that these countries are poorer, they cannot afford to provide free education of universal healthcare, so on and so forth, in the same manner that these developed countries do. Yes, we acknowledge the fact that yes, these governments have provided education for people. Like in Malaysia, primary school education is free for everyone. Good job to you for doing the absolute bare minimum. This does not mean that these individuals still need to hold this burden just because the government did its job. The reality is it is not doing its job to its full potential, and we do not believe that these people should be punished. Now let's look at the comparative, the X and the Y. Our worst case scenario against their best case scenario. And in that best case scenario, they are talking about a world in which these individuals are burdened. These individuals have to stay because, oh, I'm so patriotic. However, they are not even able to cater towards the economic problems in the first place at the scale that they need to be. And you are shifting the blame onto them despite the fact that they didn't really do anything in the first place. And even in our worst case scenario, where these developing countries lose their labor, at least these individuals are able to sustain a better life for them. Because at the end of the day, this is an active debate. But we are talking about it from the perspective of the citizen, not the government. We want what is best for the citizen and not the government. And for all those reasons, ladies and gentlemen, I have never been prouder to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Atifa, for her speech. And now I'll call upon the second speaker of the government, Sister Alia Fatihah, to continue the debate for their side. Please welcome.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so as we all know, so the motion is that also our stance is that we categorically we oppose this topic going to other countries as expats, because ultimately we want to solve the root problem of what's happening in these countries, and we want to achieve on what's best for ourselves in the long term. And that would be my argument for today on why being an expat, it doesn't benefit you in the long term. Well, as you can see, while moving abroad as an expat, it may offer initial opportunities and like higher salaries. It may not like always translate into like a long-term career growth. So expats, they often face challenges in like reaching leadership positions or accessing like high level opportunities due to the factor of like language barriers, like my prime minister explained earlier. Language barriers, cultural differences, and local preference for native talent. For example, we don't have to go far. We can see at our own country. We could see discrimination going on every day towards expats from developing countries. So, as a result, they might find themselves limited in their professional advancement over time. Okay, so for example, okay, imagine moving to a developed country as an expat with high hopes of climbing the corporate ladder. Despite your qualifications and like hard work, you realize the local professionals, they have stronger network and they understand the local business more, which makes it difficult for you to compete for senior positions in the long run. Now, moving on. So, and then there's what my prime minister said earlier. There's the cultural and social problems. So of course, when you move to like a new foreign country, there's like new cultural norms and social structures and new ways of doing things. Well, this can be like an exciting experience initially. It can also lead to challenges in the long term. Expats, they might face difficulties trying to integrate fully into the local society, building deeper personal connections with the people around, and feeling a sense of belonging. Yes?
You're saying that mixing with other cultures in developed countries is a bad thing?
Excuse me?
So you're saying that mixing with other races and cultures in other countries is a bad thing?
That's not what... Where are you getting that? I'm sorry, but where are you getting that? What about what I said is that I am not telling people to like not mix or run. I'm just saying that when they move to a new country, they don't feel a sense of belonging there. It's hard to when you move to a culture, of course, like there's such a thing as culture shock. Okay, so imagine you move to a developed country where like the social dynamics and customs, like they are very different to your home country. Okay, despite your efforts to fit in, you still might find it challenging, okay, to like establish friendships or like immerse yourself in the local community. So over time, that, like what I said earlier, you have this sense of like isolation, which overall it kind of like impacts your overall well-being and, you know, satisfaction with the expat experience. And so moving on. So as we as I was saying earlier, okay, so as mentioned from the prime minister, okay, these citizens have what's best to them and those closest to them in mind. When being an expat, okay, families' living conditions doesn't get better because like they're forced to make do with what the expat gives them, and the root problem doesn't get solved. And why is that? Because when more expats they move overseas, less people are getting taxed within the developing country, which means less money gets redistributed to society of the country. And then there's skill vacuum within the community. So people, they aren't able to take of themselves when everyone is fleeing the country for better prospects. So like as an alternative, we would like to suggest that we keep them, these citizens, within the country and provide more initiatives and incentives for them to stay. Because like the main reason they leave is because they feel like they have no prospects within those countries. So changing that would allow them to stay and contribute more. So developing countries, they can focus on creating and enabling an environment for economic growth and job creation. So this includes investing in infrastructure, supporting entrepreneurship, and attracting foreign investments. So government plays a really, really big role in trying to get these citizens to stay and make the country, the developing country, a better place. So there's no POIs left, is there? So as I was saying, and also other than that, we also have like another alternative where we would like to set up trades with other countries. When we do that, well, of course, we would improve our economy, and because the main reason of this is because the economy sucks, right? And so when we improve the root problem, which is the economy, we get the people to stay and contribute more towards our country. And I guess like that is all from me. I'm proud to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Alia. Now I call upon the second speaker of the opposition, Brother Ilyas, to continue the case for their side.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the main focus of this debate isn't this developing country, but the citizens themselves. This means that whatever the citizens do, it does not have to be tied or morally obligated to help their own country. So, first and foremost, before I go into my argument, I would like to rebut a few points made by the government side. So, the government side stated, I think like the government side first speaker stated that one of the reason why you should not move out because of family or because you have to give up money for a family. This is clearly like a generalization because the government side assumed that everybody that move out are like the same kind of people that have family and commitments back at home. While in reality, there are people who does not have family or who does not care about their family at all, and while they're moving out. And this means that it does not have anything to do with what happens at home, and you should move out if it's for your own benefits. No, thank you. And secondly, the government side also said that it's hard to make a lot of money there. It's hard to like climb, and like even you make a lot of money, it's harder because you have commitments at home and commitments in this country you're living, and maybe there are taxes. But like in comparison to this developing country, you are more likely to live comfortably in this developed country, the country that you move into, because this country are better and have a higher chance of social mobility. This means compared to if you're poor in your home country, if you're poor in this country, you have a higher chance to actually gain a lot of money to actually maybe from lower class can rise to the middle class, because that's how this developed country is. They provide better welfare, better wages for its own citizens, its own people. Now, the second speaker, no thank you, stated that there are issues with challenges and difficulty of integrating with social. It can make you feel isolated. This is not a problem at all, because my speaker has said that expats themselves, they have a choice to return home. Thus, if you can focus your work, if you move out to work in that country and you beg and you collect money from it, you can just see and you feel isolated with that people. You can simply like grab the money and return home for a few weeks or so, and then you can come back. You are not tied to that country. You are not if you move out to that country, you are not tied to it, in which you cannot move back into your own country. Yeah. And now that's all for my rebuttals. Before that, yes.
I have to be first. Why are you not morally obligated to contribute of your own country when you possess the citizenship of your own country? And my second POI would be if you think that the expats can basically just leave from that developed countries, why go there in the first place?
Okay, to answer the first question, my first speaker already said that you are not morally obligated because it's the job of the government. Even if you have a citizenship, in the end of the day, the government works for you. You are not working for the government. You vote for the government in. Then thus they are responsible towards you. And if the government does their responsibility poorly, then you can leave that country if you want. Because in the end of the day, you are not responsible to the government is responsible towards you. And to answer the second question, if you can, why would you move in the first place? Because of the economic opportunities that I will explain in my next argument. Now, moving on to my next argument is how moving out to these countries can offer a better economic opportunities for yourself. So, first of all, like we have characterized, these countries themselves are less polarized. They have better welfare, meaning better healthcare and better social mobility. They are usually people are kinder, and also to note, compared to countries in developing countries, these countries in this great countries, their basic jobs can pay you higher than what's in your own home country. So, such as you being a cashier, you start off as a cashier. That could pay you a lot more rather than being a cashier in your own home country. That itself is a benefit because this proves that you have a chance to improve yourself economically, to improve your lifestyle, to improve your living standards in that developed country. And this is important and this is good because you yourself can improve. And let's have a comparison. If you work a lot in your own home country just to live a good life, in the end of the day, it's not guaranteed because your own country have a lot of issues. It could have political issues in which your hard work could simply be meaningless and utterly futile. While in our country, when we move, maybe at first you kind of struggle. You can work as a cashier, but that itself is beneficial because then you can start accumulate money, accumulate savings for yourself, and in the long run, because of the country you are currently residing in has a lot of is more stable, then there is a higher chance for you to prosper in this new country, or at least maybe be more successful in this new country rather than how you would be in your old country. Yeah, and it is important for us to do this because in the end of the day, it is important to us to move to get better opportunities because in the end of the day, what matters the most is ourselves. We have to define things better into like improve our living standards, and to improve our living standards and to live a good life because that's generally what everybody wants, to live a good life. If you stay in your old country, you won't get that because you won't get it because that old country itself cannot even offer you good benefits in the long term. So in comparison, under their world, their best case is that they maybe could solve their issue, which is economic issue, but that itself is not solvable just by keeping in a few people in. Just because how can you be so sure that government will improve if you keep people in when the government itself does not improve after a lot of people after all this while? And in our world, our worst is maybe the individual would struggle at first because hard integrating, but in the long run they would live a prosperous life, live a better life in which they cannot have if they stay in their own country. So with that, go to side opposition.
Thank you, Brother Ilyas. Now let's welcome the third speaker of the government, Brother Said Ibrahim Al-Habshi, to the floor.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So as someone who has relatives that are expats, I feel very strongly about this topic. Not only do my relatives' families get neglected, having to think, oh, when am I going to see my dad next? They also have to deal with the peanuts that get sent back monthly from their family members due to the high expenses over there. I'll structure my debate in this way. First of all, I'll go to my rebuttals and then I'll go on to some clashes that I found within the debate, okay? So Okay, never mind. I'll go on to my clashes and then I'll reintegrate my rebuttals into them. Okay, so first of all, I want to say that a clash that I found was that we have to determine which side best caters to these individuals. And I'll give you a few structural reasons on our side as to how we cater to these individuals and how side opposition does not cater to these individuals. Okay, so first of all, our side actually wants to fix the problem long term. How does this happen? First of all, there are two ways. We localize the efforts by keeping the manpower within this country. We don't cause a skill vacuum to occur by sending these people to other countries, but by having these people as individuals want to leave the country. So all of these skilled peoples, when they don't leave the country, we localize all of the skill efforts. We have people who are capable of being medics. We have people who are capable of being engineers that are able to reformat the infrastructure and the medical system that exists within the country. And secondly, when you have these people within the country, you are able to tax them appropriately. When these people leave the country, let's say, the net population of the country decreases, and therefore less tax is being had and less wealth is being circulated within the country. So side opposition's case literally means that they are okay with letting a country die. Okay, in the interest of these individuals. These individuals are going to other countries, running away from the problem instead of wanting to fix the problem directly and be able to have a country that they are okay and happy with returning to, because they mentioned themselves that more often than not, these people do eventually return to their countries. So we win on that clash. Moreover, I want to say that side opposition mentions that minimum wage is higher. So why is this bad? Well, we tell you in our first and second speech that minimum wage higher equals to living expenses being higher. Okay, it's not. It's a case that side opposition fails to properly counter or establish. Okay, and then they go on to say that, like, oh, these individuals don't necessarily go to countries like UK or whatever that have high living expenses. They go to Australia, Singapore, etc. The fact that there are fellas that go to high living wage countries is bad enough. You're trying to cop out by picking certain individuals within the substrate that you are given with, and you're trying to ignore the other individuals that do exist. And we tell you that the fact that there are individuals that suffer from these living wages and aren't able to contribute back to themselves fully and the country that they are originated from is bad enough, and that is something that you guys have to deal with. Okay, and more often than not, these people who do become expats can't choose where they get stationed because they are following their business. They're following wherever has the most prospects for them, let's say. So if they go to a country that has high living wages and they deal with the problem of not being able to cater to themselves and their family back home and their family that is with them at that time and place, which is a situation that does occur and you cannot negate. In those situations, they suffer and they aren't, and being an expat does them no justice and no favors. Okay. Moreover, you try to say that the debate is a wash. Our arguments are a wash because minimum wage is bad on our side, and there's no healthcare policies. We tell you that countries other than America, which you are trying to paint our debate as, have healthcare policies. Extremes like America, Syria, Afghanistan are out of the context because they do not involve realistic metrics by which these people can become experts in other countries to begin with, because they're in war-torn countries, they're in battle-torn countries. How are they going to leave these countries to begin with? Okay, so countries like Malaysia, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, like you gave examples for, even with their poor economic development, they still have healthcare. So there is an incentive for these people to stay and have a betterment for their countries. Secondly, we tell you that our side best caters to these individuals because an extension of my first reason, sorry. Our side actually wants to fix the problem long term. So you mentioned that they do want to move back to their countries their countries which are developing countries eventually. And we tell you, thank you. So you're saying that these people are saving up all of their money to go back to a crap hole which they can do close to nothing in. They have nothing to do in that crap hole because it's so badly managed, there's such bad infrastructure, etc., etc. We say that on our side, at least with the people that are staying in the country, they're able to make a change because wealth is being distributed via taxes, and they have a prerogative to want to improve the well-being of the country for the betterment of themselves. So the benefits of that materializes into a benefits that are for themselves and for the people that are close to them.
Why?
Okay, I'll take your PY.
Given that this is an active debate, why would I, as a citizen, have it in my best interest to maintain the tax revenue of the country?
Because maintaining the tax revenue of a country develops the country. And like you said, you want to go back to your country eventually. So why would you want to go back to a shithole? You want to go back to somewhere that you can be proud to say, I'm living in this place currently. I have people that I care about living in this place currently with me. So that answers your question. Because as a person, why would you want to live somewhere that you can't that you aren't proud of living in? Okay? And then you also mentioned that individuals not morally obligated because it's inflation, there's limited opportunities, and they're not obligated to live somewhere that's bad. Okay, so why run away? You're running away from the problem. You're not solving the root cause. This problem will still persist whether you go overseas or not. Your family will have to live in a place where there are bad living conditions, where there are bad policies or whatsoever that you're pushing for. You're not solving the problem. Okay, so you also mentioned that there are a lot of political issues and problems which cause these citizens to leave. We tell you that that's not mutually exclusive on our side, because that those same problems happen in the countries that you go to. Discrimination, racism, etc. will happen wherever you go, and because of that, instead of trying to push and trying to adapt to a country that doesn't accept you, why won't you want to improve the living conditions of a country that you are already existing and already accepted in? So on that, we say that is a wash. So for all those reasons, never been prouder to propose.
Thank you, Brother Said Ibrahim Al-Habshi. Last but not least, I welcome the third speaker from the opposition side, Brother Arish Shazwan, to the floor.
Hello, am I audible? I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, from the government view, your worldview that for the government view, your worldview that people do not want to leave the country by manipulating them, that our country has great healthcare, more job opportunities, and more. But we do not say that. We say that in another country they have better healthcare than our own kind of healthcare here. All right. For example, if you go to the UK, for example, you can get free healthcare there. All right. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, some healthcare here, some hospitals and clinics are required to pay just to get healthcare. All right. Next is that okay. On the government side, you mentioned that being an expat, conflict of interest with the citizens. From our view, I think I disagree on this part because there is no such citizen would discriminate the expats from getting the same interest. Right? For instance, that let's say that we Malaysian would like to move to Singapore, which a more developing country. We want to share the same interest, which is getting a better healthcare services and better job opportunities. It's not like they are going to hinder us. They are going to prevent us from getting the healthcare. No, thank you. Getting a better healthcare. But you said that it conflicts the interest. Meanwhile, the another country would give that sharing same interest. All right. The next one is that the government view that expats don't receive long-term benefits. So basically, the reason expats move to another developing country not for seeking for long-term benefits, since that being an expat just to move there to get benefits temporarily, and whenever we want, we can just return back to our home country. Right? That's why. Sorry, no, thank you. Which is why seeking for long-term benefits does not really our priority as an expat. Meanwhile, we also want to seek more benefits, such as like a higher minimum wage while working in another developing country. Next is that the government try to make citizens try to stay in their country. That's for the government. That's for the government view. All right. And for our view, if really government try to make citizens to stay in our home country, then why there are still some citizens who like to leave this country just to get better healthcare. This would mean that the government has failed, or maybe they couldn't give enough stable stable opportunities to the citizens that failed to make the citizens to stay in their home country. Which is why citizens decide to become an expat to have more stable life expenses, like affordable living places, which is that they can from living in another country. Right. Our worldview that we prioritize citizens based on life opportunities more than the government. Just like my previous speaker has said, we are not responsible for the government, but the government is responsible for us. Okay, that's why if we decided to move to another country just because to seek benefits, that means that the government has failed to become responsible towards us. All right. When we become experts, we want to see more, we want to see benefits that are far better for us and far better for our living expenses. And all right, and all right, and my previous speaker have also mentioned that we can get higher salary even though just by working at a minimum wage worker. For example, like if I move to United Kingdom again, that if we work as a McDonald's customer service, the minimum wage salary is far higher than the minimum wage as the same job, as the same position in Malaysia. So therefore, this means that the higher the salary that we can afford more living expenses that we can uh, rather than living in our home country. Which is why that as an aspect, people are far more comfortable in working in another developed country because they provide a higher minimum wage salary for working, even though just working as lower position such as customer service or as a cooker or and so forth. Right, I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you to Brother Aris. Now it is time for the preparation of reply speeches. The time given for each team will be 1 minute. Debaters, please use the 1 minute to prepare your reply speeches. It is now the time for the reply speeches, starting first with the opposition. Please welcome the opposition summary speaker, Brother Ilyas.
I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Who caters to citizens better? That is the main clash of this debate. Which side actually cares for its citizens care for the people and the betterment of the people? Well, I like to argue that it is our side, the opposition side, because the government side's argument all based around improving economy. Even their first argument is about you have to take a responsibility of our own country. You have to it's better because in your own country you can cause change, and the government can do something to I apologize, can do something to improve their own country with the help of these people that say. Well, I'll say that this is false, because in the end of the day, if a government having a skill vacuum after these people move out is entirely the government's fault. A government with bad management, with bad leadership, should pay the price of their bad leadership, and this is the price: skill vacuum. They don't manage to actually convince their people to stay. Like the second speaker said in the end of her speech, that by making the economy better, then people would stay. But that in itself relies entirely on the government and not the citizen. Thus, these citizens should not be stopped, should not be kept in this country, rather than achieving and getting better opportunities outside the countries. And on the outside, we say that these citizens don't have the moral responsibility to care for their government, because in the end of the day, if a government handle their country badly, then it is justified for citizens to move out, to find work at a better place. And this better place can provide better opportunities, better welfare system than what the old country has to offer. Now, let's us analyze their arguments. To win this debate, the government has to prove their stance, why their side solve the root of the problem, and why it is better for the development of your own self. But in the end of the day, they fail to actually told to us how you can actually solve the root of the problem, that is economic instability. They simply state that, oh, you should stay in your own country, so because you have like family issues, or because outside is far more challenging. And yeah, but they don't actually explain how by keeping people in, it can cause these bad countries to actually be better, when in reality these bad countries, this developing country has been worse from the start. What does keeping people in or keeping people out makes the difference? The only difference that can happen is when the government actually do something, not the people. And also so they fail to prove that, and secondly, they also fail to prove how it is better for oneself, because it's very situational. Their argument is that people have families they have to pay back to, or people struggles with language barrier, challenges and difficulties, and maybe some people want to climb up to senior position and they have challenge. But that itself is like different for everybody. Everybody that move out is different. Sometimes they don't have a family that they are tied to. Sometimes they don't care about their family. Sometimes they move out not because of they want senior positions. They just want a normal, comfortable life, which these countries can provide. Sometimes these people don't even have a language barrier because they are fluent in that language, or the language of the country they move into. Thus, this general thing is neglecting people who can actually move out and actually be successful there, and that is simply cruel under the government side. So, with that, go to side opposition. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the speaker for the summary and welcome the last speaker of the government, Brother Wafi Izzuddin, to sum up for their team and the debate as a whole.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So start in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, opposition repetitively is attacking us by saying that we generalize many things. For example, they expect family background and the fact that discrimination happening in those developed countries. But they did also because they are repetitively saying that developing countries are bad countries. They have a bad politician. They have all of this. They have a bad economy. The fact that they generalize this, for example, Malaysia itself is a developing country. We are not even rich countries. But right now, we can say that all of us living here peacefully. That because why? Because the government of Malaysia are fulfilling their responsibilities in this case. Because the idea of the opposition thinks that the government of the developing countries are not fulfilling their job, and that is why they think that moving that them going to abroad is the best way, and that is what we do not agree upon on. So there are point of clashes that I want to say. The first is there any moral obligation for the citizen to contribute to the countries? First, yes, we believe so, but the opposition said no. So why do we believe that so? Because they hold the citizenships. Like for example, if I am a citizen of Zimbabwe, I am a citizen of Zimbabwe, and the Zimbabwe government have the responsibility to ensure my safety, or even many things. They have many responsibilities upon us. And for example, they have to provide us those basic necessities. And the opposition said that they did not provide the proper basic necessities. Even if that's true, that they still provide them, which is they are fulfilling their responsibilities. But and the opposition side says that because of them not providing such or because of them generalizing this, which is not providing the facilities, I have to go. But Mr. Speaker, citizens have the moral obligation. Why? Because they have a social contracts, which is the citizen receives certain benefits of and protection from their country in exchange for fulfilling their responsibilities. But in this context, if we moving out, I will not if I'm moving out, I will not respond. I will not fulfilling my responsibilities, such as paying taxes and actively participating in civic life. But still, I am a citizen of Malaysia, and that is so wrong. They are so individual. They are so individualistic approach. They don't care about everyone, or even the government, when the government itself taking care of them. So and that is the first point of clashes. And the second point of clashes is which part provide the better the better quality of living of the individual. Opposition like I was really keep pressing on about how they can go back to the countries after a short period of time. But why you go back to your own countries? You know they are to that with your permission to that shithole, because you're not solving the problem for yourself. And the opposition also says that the countries have no incentive to discriminate. To discriminate. Discrimination does not does not need to be incentivized. Is incentivized. It just happens, as we've mentioned before, when they do get discrimination against when they do get discriminated against, and after that they will eventually return to their home countries anyway. For example, Korea and Japan is one of the worst countries that produce this xenophobic citizen. They are developed countries, but they are having that kind of discrimination. So therefore the opposition are not solving the problem. And the quality of living of the individuals in our side, we believe that they can provide for their family, they can provide for the countries. And with that being said, they can become not just a good citizen, but they are just becoming a good human. But in their case, they are so individualistic. I don't care about you guys, but let me live on my own. And if you want to work which are more realistic and which are more morally obligated, follow for the government side. Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers for the great debate. Let's give them a last round of applause. Dear judge, you have a maximum of 10 minutes to to announce the winner and give your verbal adjudications. The floor is now yours.
Do I have to give verbal education for the semi-finals?
Yes.
Oh, all right then. Give me 3 minutes. Assalamu alaikum. Hello.
Hello?
How you guys doing? So I am going to give a brief comment on the debate. I think the debate we just had now doesn't really like the speeches I heard once really in the spirit of the debate. The debate is about as a citizen of a developing country, which means you have to debate thinking about the best interest of the actor, who is the citizen of developing countries. That's number one. Number two, I think there was a lot of like convenient definition. Like at some point, I'm hearing definition of like developing countries as countries like so. I mean, it wasn't mentioned. An example wasn't mentioned, but like it was given like definitions for countries like Somalia where like things are really really bad. And then at some other points, I'm hearing like definition like for countries like Malaysia. So like you have to be very consistent on like you have to be consistent in your definition. And secondly, you have to tell me the reason that definition is important. Personally, I think this debate is about countries like, let's say, Vietnam, Thailand, to a certain extent, Bangladesh. Like, they're not like terrible countries to live in, but at the same time, they're not like the best countries to live in. You understand? So, with that said, I gave the debate to the opposition side on a very, very small margin for a couple of reasons. So, the opposition side. So the reason I give the debate to the opposition side is because, like, I think they were the side that was able to prove to me that this is what's best for the citizen of a developing country. And in a debate like this, in a motion like this, that's the argument that's always going to take priority over any kind of argument. So when you make arguments like, oh, this is not good for the country on the government side, you make an argument like, this is not good for the country. No one is going to develop the economy of the country. It's going to lead to brain drain and all these sort of things. Yes, they are true, but like it's not really the business of a citizen to fix his own country. Like it's not in his best interest. Like it's not necessarily in his best interest. You didn't tell me why. Like, oh, if you stay there and fix the country, then that's gonna be in your best interest. That's number one. Number two is they were able to tell me how the person benefits in terms of like opposition was able to tell me how the person benefits in terms of like better wages, better working condition, healthcare, like better education for their kids and all these sort of things. But secondly, is they were also able to prove to me that it's not a burden. It's not the burden of the citizen to ensure that the country is developed. Rather, it's the burden of the government to ensure that. And like you guys didn't really give me any kind of response or argument to those like specific line of argumentation. I think those lines of argumentation stay to the end of the were like valid to the end of the debate, and there's no response to them. That's largely one of the reasons I won. The other part is also the idea of like, oh, when people leave, when people travel to other countries, for example, like they travel to let's say the UK to study, to work there, it's very hard for them to assimilate into that society. It's hard for them to integrate that society. I think they brought two arguments. The first one is they respond by saying very often when people travel, they travel to countries that are very close to them. So, for example, a Malaysian moving to Singapore, or let's say a Bangladeshi moving to India. Like these are countries that are like maybe not the same, but like they are very close in terms of cultural practices. But secondly, they said it's not really important for you to stay in that country for a long time. You can decide to leave, you can move, and you can visit your family whenever you feel like you are missing them. I think the argument you guys should have given response to this was that, hey, very often it's very hard for you to leave because when you leave, you probably would lose your job, or like you're not earning enough to like save a lot of money to like start a new life in your country without having to like depend on that country. Like there's so many ways in which you can respond to that argument. That argument stayed to the end of the debate. Then last one is like we were talking about like how it's going to like how like this basically it's also an argument for fixing the economy of the country. So like stay in the country, then you're gonna be forced to trade to improve the country's economy. The only problem with this is like I still do not see how this help the most important stakeholder in this debate. And who's the most important stakeholder in this debate? is the citizen of a developing country. So why should they stay? Why should they be like? How does that benefit them? That's like the spirit of the debate. And on opposition, I got more arguments and more like substantiation as to how that is going to improve the lives of those citizens. That's why I give the debate to the opposition side. Yep, that's about it about on my oral adjudication. If you need any more like personal feedback, you can reach out to me.
Okay, thank you, Hashim.
You're welcome. And like good luck.
Can I DM you on WhatsApp for personal feedback or?
Absolutely.
All right.
You have my WhatsApp, right?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. All right. Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all debaters and thank you to our judge. See you again at the final round of Rector's Cup Debating Championship. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.